Gate Dark Alliance. I also worked on an exciting variety of canceled projects, which I'm sure you guys know is a pretty common thing to happen in this industry. I worked on Baldur's Gate 3 for about a year before that got canceled at Black Isle, and there was many tears and screaming in the halls when that happened. And I also worked on Fallout 3 at Black Isle Studios for many, many years before that project was also canceled and shot in the head. So, yeah, more with the introductions. I'm currently at Obsidian Entertainment. Our studio focus remains role-playing games. We've worked with a number of franchises, including Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2. We did the sequel to BioWare's first title. And we're still working with Dungeons & Dragons games. We worked on Neverwinter Nights 2, Neverwinter Nights 2 Mask of the Betrayer, Storm of Zahir, and in October 2009, we have our first real-world RPG that's going to be coming out in October 2009. And I cannot tell you guys how happy I am to finally be working on a real-world role-playing game where all the dialogue and the scripts are things that are actually relevant in today's culture. So, well, with a lot more guns and explosions and gadgets. Anyway, so enough of the introductions. This presentation is going to deal with theme, story, and character. It's going to cover several games that we did at Black Isle Studios and Obsidian. I'm going to try and give you guys as many details as I can about this process, and you guys are absolutely welcome to ask questions in the middle of it. I don't mind getting interrupted. The only thing I would ask is if you guys do have questions, just say them really, really loudly, because many years of listening to very bad, loud music has made me partially deaf. And also, if you guys don't get to any of your questions during this presentation, I'll also be giving you my contact information as well, and you guys are welcome to contact me at any time with any questions that come to you after the presentation, or things you've been thinking about, or any questions you wanted to ask about the material I presented. And the only reason for that is when I was trying to get in the game industry, no one would ever answer my questions about the best process to go about doing it. So now that I am in the industry, I am very eager to share knowledge with other people and return the favor for the miserable first few years I had trying to get in. So I'm going to cover 4 different titles today. Keep your fingers crossed. I'll try and get through all of them, and I may not succeed. The first one I'm going to deal with is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2. I'm also going to deal with the theme and story character process for Planescape Torment. Also the many years of work that I put into Fallout 3 at Black Isle Studios. And finally, I'll be showcasing some of the stuff that we've done from a practical standpoint with Alpha Protocol, our real-world RPG. So now for the title of the presentation, where I'm discussing going from script to screen to scream. And I sort of wanted to explain the scream aspect of this presentation. A lot of the examples that I'm going to cite today for the story and narrative process came from a very bad place. It came from a lot of hatred. I don't necessarily think that in the long run that was a bad thing. I think that with the right amount of hatred, it can give you fuel to do far more creative projects and explore new areas that other games and genres aren't doing. But one thing I did want to stress is that for all the hate that I'm going to be showing with these various slides and examples, there's also a lot of love that went into these games as well. I enjoyed working on all of these titles. And while the hatred may have given me fuel to design certain elements or create certain dungeons or experiences, ultimately that put me in a really good place at the end of the design process. So just to reassure you guys that there is still a lot of love in this presentation. Hatred and rebellion. So I think a lot of good ideas can come out of hatred and frustration. Or just the general sense of being tired with what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Also, I think a lot of frustration and hatred can come from being continually exposed to certain genre conventions within the types of games you're making. And you'll usually get exposed to those same elements again and again and again. And as one concrete example of where I think hatred and frustration, although I'm sure it's more frustration, at least according to his PR manager, Ronald Moore, the creator of Battlestar Galactica, worked on Star Trek Voyager for many years before he started Battlestar Galactica. And Battlestar Galactica ended up being very much what Star Trek Voyager wasn't, even though the premises of the two series are very, very similar. We have the fine Voyager ship here, which was struggling to make its way back to Earth. It's a very clean ship. It's got no spots on it. It doesn't look like it's suffered very much. And even the general design of the actual starship itself is very clean, lots of curves. And Ronald Moore took that ship, gave it a lot of hard edges, made it look very lived in, and sort of removed the utopian aspect from Voyager's journey when he was doing Battlestar Galactica. And a lot of that comes from rebelling against the genre that he was continually exposed to while working on Star Trek. Voyager itself never seemed to struggle or cope much during its journey. But on the converse side, in Battlestar Galactica, on almost every episode, they're having to cope with an overwhelming series of problems, whether it's like civil war within their ranks, very serious character flaws amongst the characters. And Battlestar felt very non-utopian. It felt very lived in. And one of the quotes that Ronald Moore had about Star Trek Voyager was that the entire series development seemed contrary to its premise. Voyager itself was intended to be a very survivor type science fiction genre where they were continually struggling to get back home, but very few of the elements about that series seemed to convey that to the viewer. One specific element that I think was good with his quote was he quotes, in the Voyager episode, they're going to sit in a big fat chair and look at the view screen. And I cannot recall an episode of Battlestar Galactica when Admiral Adama is on the bridge where he is not standing intent on what he's doing. And I think that specific example alone shows how he dealt with the opposites when doing Battlestar Galactica. Battlestar Galactica also had some very flawed characters. One could argue that Star Trek Voyager did too. But even the most heroic of characters on Battlestar Galactica has incredibly serious flaws that the viewer can't help but notice and react to. And in general, the Battlestar Galactica felt very real, where Star Trek did not. They kept everything focused. They didn't have a new alien race introduced every episode. They kept the conflict focused just between the Cylons and humanity and just kept the series focused on that. And I think when it comes to rebelling against the genre, all of those elements ended up being a very good thing. Okay, so how does that relate? What we're going to do here is take each of the franchises that I've worked with, and starting with Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, I'm going to discuss exactly how hatred factored into the theme and character design for each of these games. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, it was our first foray into doing a more cinematic style of game. We leveraged off of BioWare's Knights of the Old Republic 1, and it was our first cinematic experience that wasn't Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. We had a lot of challenges with the project. It had a very, very short production cycle. We were pretty short on resources, and I'm sure, I'm preaching to the choir here, I'm sure everyone's been in this situation. We also had very little exposure to the first game before we were supposed to start pre-production on Knights 2, which resulted in some very serious losses of time when we were trying to figure out exactly how to structure the story and theme for Star Wars. We also had an inability to understand the strengths of the engine that we were using, and we ended up wasting a lot of time for functionality and features that the engine actually could not support very well. And it was also our exposure to doing a fully voice-recorded game, which was a huge challenge when it came to role-playing games. It also had a number of advantages as well, however. We had a working engine right off the bat, thanks to BioWare. They were kind enough to send guys down to show us